Hola, buenas tardes. No contestéis todos de golpe. Queremos daros la bienvenida. Creemos que es una oportunidad que tenemos hoy de ver a David Carson y que pocas veces se tienen. Y nada, daros la bienvenida al auditorio de ESdesign. Queremos dar la bienvenida a todos los estudiantes y profesores de la escuela que están aquí, así como todos los profesionales que nos estáis acompañando en las redes sociales para ver surfear de la impresión a lo digital a la mano de David Carson, nuestro héroe y leyenda del mundo del diseño gráfico. Queremos también aprovechar para saludar a todos los alumnos que vais a seguir la charla en el streaming desde el campus virtual. Y queremos dar buenos días a los que nos siguen desde Latinoamérica y buenas tardes a todos los que nos siguen desde el resto de España o desde Europa. También queremos dar la bienvenida a todos los nuevos alumnos que empiezan mañana las clases y que creemos que no hay mejor manera de empezar el curso 2018 y 2019 que con una conferencia inaugural del nivel de David Carson. Estamos seguros que os llenará de inspiración, motivación y cariño en esta cosa que compartimos todos, que es la pasión para el diseño, de la mano de ESdesign, Escuela Superior de Diseño de Barcelona. Pues nada, os invitamos que seguís la charla por las redes sociales con el hashtag ESdesign Conferencia o con ESdesign Carson. Y nada, ya sé que ninguno de vosotros habéis venido aquí para verme hablar a mí, o sea que daremos paso a David Carson. Por favor, un aplauso.
No. That's it, I think. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I usually like to say something about the intro or kind of react to it, but I have no idea what was said. But all the good stuff, all the good stuff was true. And anyway, so I have a lot of stuff to show you. Tonight I'm going to try to explain why it looks the way it does, and I hope there's questions afterwards. It's a lot more interesting for me to get your feedback and any questions, so hopefully we'll have time for that. So that also means I have to figure out the remote, probably. Oh, Jesus. Well, this is my screen, actually. It's my, this is my laptop. This is my screen. This might tell you a lot about my work. These are all live. This is kind of how I work. Yeah. And that's it. Thank you very much. That might be all you need to know. I don't know. All right, so let's... So, any questions? We're getting closer. Oh, it's back. Anyway, I understand this is the first talk in this facility, and that's pretty cool to get to do the first one. Cool space, and hopefully this will work now. So again, I'm just going to show you a bunch of work and try to explain the way it does. This is kind of my office, my studio. Probably like many of you, I can work now, obviously, wherever I have my laptop, and that's pretty much what I do. I have it with me on trips, and I just kind of work wherever I am. So I think certain things catch my eye. I take a lot of photographs, like I think many of you do, and I think it influences the work. Hopefully not directly, but indirectly, some shape, some color, some form. Something I've seen influences the work. So, and I would encourage you to kind of do the same thing, be influenced from your environment and what you experience and what you see, more than design annuals or books or award shows or all that, but things that catch your eye. So this is just a train I saw somewhere in America. And things like this intrigue me. This is, somebody took the trouble to design this. Oh no, let's not get the lights up. No. Thanks, anyway. Nice try. I'm going to show off our auditorium. Yeah, anyway, so somebody designed this, somebody took the time to print it, and then put it up around Zurich in Switzerland, and it just says, holy shit, and nothing else. There's no anybody to contact or anything, and I'm always intrigued that people do this kind of out of love or passion, no, not trying to sell something, and it's kind of nice. This is where I go in the Caribbean, and this is pretty clear. I'm probably not going to dump out there. It's a tough crowd. Okay, we'll wait for the translation, maybe. I'm guessing it's similar in all languages. But when I see something like this, the first thing I do is check the letters to see if they're the same or not. That was interesting, too. Yeah, so anyway, I think we should be honored that we're the first presentation in the hall, and there may be some glitches, but regardless, you don't want to dump out here. It's a pretty good comeback. Well, this might be the only multimedia part of the presentation you'll see. Things are moving, flashing. And I'd like to be able to tell you it was on purpose. This could be a long night. But you know, it is funny that everybody today is, literally everybody is a photographer. I mean, everybody. If you own a phone, you're a photographer. So the only thing that starts to separate photographers, and the same thing's happening in graphic design, is your eye, your sensibility. Everybody has the same equipment, the same toys, the same whatever, and they're all pretty good. So it becomes, as we get more automated and more computer-driven, I think it becomes more important than ever to rely on your own intuition and your own kind of subjective view of the world. I think we're getting closer, which is a good sign. Anyway, I hate hand-done fonts or type that is done as a font. You know, if you want hand lettering, do it by hand lettering it. But this is pretty clear. I'm not going to dump out there. So, oh no. Oh, good. Okay. Oh, geez. So the stuff that catches my eye. This is just the shadow of a signage in America on a cement, probably a sidewalk, and you know you can't better that in Photoshop. It's just, you know, nature or whatever has created this cool little thing, and this stuff I notice. Oh no, we have to do that every time? Oh gosh, that's not going to be very irritating, is it? Am I doing something wrong? All I'm doing is pushing that one. Yeah. Anyway, if you have a friend that has one of these, just solve it for them. It's 16. Okay, 4x4 is 16, and you know, preferably if you have a permanent marker, that'd be good. And anyway, I just love the idea of somebody coming out in the morning and seeing 16 on their precious car. Yeah, that's a little more. I can, let's see. So if I go forward, oh man, that's a tough way. Let's see. Did you, you did that. Okay, well, then maybe I have to like nod. We might have to try that actually. So again, colors, shapes, textures, things I see. This happens to be in American Wyoming. Those of you that have been to America, you know, if you go any particular place, it's way different from the rest of America, and Wyoming would be like that. And so color, textures, but wait till I nod, okay, because it's like, he's doing it on his own while I talk. Okay, anyway, sorry. I've never had that happen. It's like, maybe I'll give you the, okay, let it go. Yeah, so and then we have this one. I love the idea that we have drive-through liquor stores in America. You can't drink and drive, but you can drive through in your car and get whatever you want. As people say, no, I won't be drinking. No, just driving through. And then I saw this one, and I don't know. I'm not sure how the translation will work, but this is a convenience store in America, and or at least in the mid-America. I would love to have been in on this meeting when they were naming this new convenience store. Oh, that's weird how that's happening. But anyways, people are saying, well, what about 7-Eleven? And somebody says, I think that's taken. And somebody else says, Stop and Go. I said, no. And I'm still kind of amazed that they came up with this and nobody in that meeting said, excuse me, it might just be me, but, so these are all over the Midwest, and apparently you can buy food here too. Yeah, okay. Should we try that? This is the best McDonald's sign you'll ever see. Taking it down somewhere. Yeah, I like this one. And I saw this in Dominican Republic, and this is how they let you know that they sell this beer. It's Presidente, which is their main export in Dominican Republic. And it was really nice. It was painted on the side of the buildings, and it was, I thought, so much more effective than in America. They would get a cheap kind of neon-free sign for all the dealers, and this was pretty nice. It was really clear, and I liked it a lot. So if any of you have followed my work, or this is something I've said for a while, but don't mistake, well, there's two things here. Number one, you shouldn't be able to read this based on what you've maybe learned in school. But number one, you can read it, and number two, it's true. So don't mistake legibility for communication. So just because something's legible doesn't mean it communicates. And more importantly, doesn't mean it communicates the right thing. So what is the message your work sends before somebody starts reading it? And is it then consistent with what they get when they actually read the words? So legibility alone doesn't mean you're communicating the right thing. And I happen to have an example of that, of somebody who's stealing my laugh lines. But, so let's look at this next slide, and I've got a pretty good example of that. This is pretty legible, pretty sharp, pretty easy to read, but may not be sending the right message. So basically, if you keep going, you may die. The bridge is out ahead. It's like, poof. So don't drive and don't walk. So very legible, very clear, easy to read, but probably not sending the right message. And you can be sure people went up there and touched the side. Oh, wow, it is sharp. Just like they do with the wet paint signs. Yep, it's wet. Anyway, okay. So let's start to look at some work. This is a cover for a book on the photography of surfing in Florida. And probably not too many of you remember, but this is how we used to crop photos. This is an original photo. Somebody takes an orange pencil and draws where it's supposed to be cropped by the printer. And it just not only seems really archaic, but for the cover of this magazine, or book actually, it seemed kind of perfect. So somebody decades ago had determined this was the crop they wanted, drew it on the photo, gave it to the printer, and they would try to copy that. And so for a photo book, it made perfect sense to leave those marks on there. Well, boy, that's pretty low res, but some of you may have seen the film Helvetica about that famous typeface, and they asked the various people that were in that talked in the film to do a poster, and this was mine, and it's fairly pedestrian, kind of okay poster, but what I like about it is that I did it all in Franklin Gothic. A different font. So my Helvetica poster is done only in Franklin Gothic. And they're very similar. I think Franklin Gothic's a little cooler, but but I never heard much comments. I don't think people got it, but anyway. You're having way too much fun over here. This is one of the things I'm kind of rallying against these days. Graphic design has gotten kind of generic, kind of homogenized, and kind of boring in the last decade, or maybe even two. And there seems to be this kind of default setting that agencies in particular, but other people, it's just like, oh, the title, let's make it all caps, flush left, done. Okay, got it. And it just doesn't have the correct emotion or attitude, or it's just, you know, as designers, you should be bringing more to the project than what your computer can default to. So you need to make those decisions. That's why you're a designer, for your eye and your sensibility, and not letting the computer default to some, you know, who knows who set up the distance between sentences and all that. But this is all over New York, and the ones on the right, Cooper Hewitt actually is facing the street, so you're supposed to read it as you drive by, and you know, all caps, flush left, big sentences. That's hard to read. People used to say my stuff was hard to read. But anyway, okay. So we've all noticed and seen torn posters. I'm still attracted to that type of artwork, and it's, you know, because it's torn doesn't make it good, but if you can be open to stuff you're not expecting as you're working, sometimes you find the best results. And this is just some posters I found in Colombia, and some really nice stuff going on. And so I took that, and then the next one, yeah, so here you see me doing research, and it was pretty fun to like tear these things off and discover what was underneath. And a lot of times, if not most of the time, it didn't quite work, but every now and then you just go, whoa, that's really nice. So I don't think it's something you can really let dictate your work or how you work, but it's a broader thing maybe of just being open to things you're not expecting. And sometimes you find some great stuff. So there's designer as art or as poster, I don't know. I was pretty happy. And then I take some of the things I tear off the walls and I put them back together as kind of a new poster. And I think that's kind of intriguing to me as well. Okay, so this is part of my bigger maybe message about it, noticing your environment and using things around you to influence you. So the stuff I notice, any idea what this is? Anybody want to guess? A what? Oh, well, it's a what? What did they say? It might be close. Let's look at the next one. I mean, that's maybe a little better clue, but any idea where that might be coming from? It's something I think you're all going to recognize. Should I try this? No, don't. He really wants to run the show. Let me see if I do it. Oh, so I'm not controlling anything at all. Okay. Well, there's another one. Still, any guesses? Let's look at the next one. Okay, well, I think that one gets a little closer to me, but I kind of know where this is going. So, you know, this is about everyday things you might see and how to maybe let them influence you or not, but so that's where they came from. So that tells you how old my laptop is, maybe, but not that old. It's really fascinating to me. It's like, when does that disappear? When does that happen? Like if you walk on, you know, rock steps and it starts to, anyway, I think it's pretty interesting. So my message is to really use your environment and things around you to kind of influence you as well, or at least observe them. So my schooling, in a way, is Transworld Skateboarding Magazine. I did this for 3 years. I have a degree in sociology and later discovered graphic design. It's a second career for me. I have no formal training in graphic design. And sometimes people say, oh, that explains it. Okay, good. But in my case, I never learned all the things I wasn't supposed to do. I just did what made sense to me. And then other people said, oh, you can't do that, and you broke this rule and that rule. And I said, oh, says who? Where? What? Well, why not? And if I have an overlaying kind of thinking now, it's still like, well, why not? Why couldn't I do that? And so look at a few covers from Transworld Skateboarding. So this really was my schooling in a way. I did this for 3 years and then realized I was getting kind of typecast as a skate guy, and so I purposely moved away from that. This was hand lettering and Xerox machine when they were still bad and kind of cool copies. That led to a magazine called Beach Culture, which was kind of an experimental phase in music, lifestyle, fashion, all these things. And this is a title I commissioned, but I wanted the cover lines to feel like the illustration, so I actually went in and created those and put them back in this order. And you can see the fourth one down is a skater, an article about Tony Hawk. So he's upside down because that's kind of what he did. So I guess the point is all that stuff's important, the address, the phone number, all the little things you may tend to overlook, that's all really important, especially when I look at student portfolios. I want to see how did they deal with the little stuff or the things they didn't think maybe were so important. So it's all important. The end of summer, yeah. But you can see there's no grid, there's no system in this magazine, or pretty much all the magazines I've worked on. And just every page is a whole new design assignment. It's a lot more work, but I also think it's a lot more fun to do, and I think ends up at more interesting places. So I'm not a big grid person. If it works for you and you can design well and you enjoy doing that, then the grid is fine. If not, I would encourage you to trust your own intuition and way of thinking of things. I can't design with any grid lines. I have to take them off the page because I see them. They became part of the design. The cover. I have to try to speed up a little bit here. Yeah, cover. There's the inside article on the skater Tony Hawk, and just playing off the kind of the simplicity of his name, and hopefully the O has some relevance to whether it's wheels or skating or motion, or I find my work works the best if it's either really simple or really complicated, and when it's in the middle, I think it's the least successful and probably and wasn't as fun to do. So the starting point for me is always to read the article and then try to think, well, what would that look like? And then later is to listen to the music and say, wow, what am I getting from listening to that music? What would that look like? And that sends me somewhere. So it's not a prearranged grid or anything, any kind of system. It's like, well, what did I get from just reading that, hearing the music, looking at the photos? And it has to send you somewhere, so you can kind of never run out of ideas. Here I'm just interpreting the title, Mixed Messages, not as opposed to the article itself. I like to go back to hand-done things even today, and this was done with a calligraphy pen, held too high on the wrong angle on watercolor paper, and of course it says what? Beach. That's totally readable. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks, all 7 of you that got that. Yeah. Okay. Night before last, starting opening page where I often didn't use much type because to me I want to get the impact. And what I want to really say is that this might be worth your while. This is intriguing based on this opening spread, hopefully. So when you turn to type, you probably got a lot of information. but to me that's a decent trade-off. Similar here, hanging at Carmine Street, just interpreting the title, seemed like a good place to hang some type. Then I went to Surfer magazine and did that for a couple of years. Surfing in general, it's a more conservative audience than I would have expected. And surfers tend to be kind of conservative, especially when it's something outside of actually riding a wave, like something like graphic design. And there are a lot of pretty upset people with the redesign. But it quickly became no big deal, and all the editorials started looking like the ads started looking like the editorial. And so something about the shock of the new that people like to complain about. But yeah. There's some articles here. Again, interpreting this article about a very unfriendly place to go surfing. It's called Cold Sweat, and I didn't want to make it very friendly in the opening either. Return to, well, I don't know this language, so I don't know what that says, but anyway, opening. This is nothing to do with what you just saw, but I took this picture in the Caribbean like last winter, and when I looked at it, I said, wow, there's a freaking butterfly in there. How'd that happen? So I call this a butterfly shot, and happens to be a wave in the background. But try to do that on purpose. Try to go out and capture a butterfly with a wave in the background. You're not impressed? Okay. That's pretty good. And we'll go back to covers for very good. So the logo changed every time. Again, no grid, no system, and I think that's what kept it interesting to the readers too, that you had this kind of freedom. Here I often got a publicity photo from the record company, and it was one you knew everybody was going to see everywhere else because it was free. And I just decided to make type the star, so that the type is big and the band is even underneath the barcode. But it seemed to work. When they gave me this cover, they gave me a bunch of cover lines. It said something about Keith Richards comes clean, talks about sex, drugs, rock and roll. And I looked at this photo and I just thought, man, you don't need to say anything. It's kind of, at the time, I thought, God, does he look old? Well, have you seen a picture recently? About 120, maybe? This turned out to be one of their biggest selling issues. So it's more than just what you say in the cover lines. It gets people's attention. Here again, just some severe cropping of a kind of average photo. And experimenting with white space. Early kind of layering Photoshop-ish. And this particular person we interviewed on the band Dinosaur Jr., he really hated magazines, he hated interviews, he hated everything, it seemed like. So this was kind of my response to that. I just used his photo upside down. And when I saw this in stores, they had put it the correct right way. So sometimes it is the simpler things. It doesn't have to be all wild and crazy. It's more that there's something behind it. School days. This is pretty pixelated, but it's super chunk. And so here I'm experimenting with columns of type. So they're different widths, they're different, I don't know if these are different fonts, but those are decisions you should be making, not let your computer default to that. So the width of the column, the space between different columns, even the fonts between different columns, you should make those decisions. It's way too easy to let your computer default to those. So, and here, not only experimenting with that, but at some point realized the name super chunk, I could take the word super and actually reverse it out of the body copy. So where you saw the word super, that was pretty quick. The words don't wrap around that; they simply disappeared there. You still got most of the article. I don't think you lost too much. Wow, really pixelated. So this is an experiment where I'm trying to do 2 articles through one, or throughout one. So it's an opening with 2 different articles that were never intended to be together. Nine Inch Nails, the band, and the singer Perry Farrell. So I had them start on the same spread, and then the rest of the spreads in this article kind of ran together, these 2 articles, to see if it could be more like film or more like something moving. But again, this just didn't catch on. Somebody said one time what I was doing was experimenting in public. And that's really what Reagan was, in a sense. I had 30 issues, you'd try a bunch of stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't, and then there'd be a whole nother issue. And I like that rhythm of magazines in general, but I would be the first one to say a lot of it didn't work. But we were trying, so that's half the fun. Contents page, never had page numbers on them, just something that I think people kind of go through magazines from the back anyway, and maybe the page numbers aren't that important. Another contents page. Article on a band called Cocteau Twins. They weren't twins, there was 3 of them, and the record company only sent me a photo of the lead singer, this girl, and I thought, okay, well, I just did 1 page twice as a spread, and I thought that said something about twins. And I often wonder if people realized when they read the first page and went to the second that they were just reading the same thing again. It didn't keep going, but I never heard anything about it. But, songs in the key of life. Different rock stars talked about songs that when they heard them took them back to a different time in their life, or a different love or season or something. Has anybody ever had that happen? No? Okay. Of course you have. Okay, good. All right, go. Brian Eno, singer, composer. So again, the starting point for me is I listened to the music, I read the article, and this is where it sent me. And it would have sent somebody else somewhere different, obviously, but hopefully it ended up at a more intriguing place than if I just flowed into an existing grid, something. This, to me, hopefully promises this might be worth your while to read. Check this out, turn the page. Here again, experimenting with columns of type width, and who says they have to be straight and rigid, and that one I actually took some shapes out of the photograph, moved them over to the type, and it kind of forced them into these shapes, and just experimenting. Same thing here, there's 3 different columns, they're touching, there's 3 different fonts, and why not? Maybe columns can touch, maybe they can change fonts, as opposed to letting your computer make those decisions. Singer Kate Bush, and this would have been from listening to the music, reading the article, and then this is where I ended up. Let's just pause here for a second. Okay, good. This one is called Hot for Teacher, and I like the way the type is kind of lustfully leaning towards the teacher. Different rock stars talked about teachers they had lusted after in school, and I was fortunate to find a picture of a teacher sitting on some books, and it just seemed to work. Early experimenting with how do I get these shapes and columns, and at some point I liked the grids that came up, and I left them, so I had to go back in and recreate all these actual guidelines. These actually stayed in the final layout. And that sort of thing you can only do once. You can't really
go back and do that again or repeat it in any way, but just experimenting. It's also a magazine about rock and roll or about new music, and so I think you have not only the freedom to try things, I think you have a certain responsibility as a designer based on the audience and the subject matter to make it true to the subject matter. Morrissey says, I have no interest whatsoever in any aspect of whoredom. We said, yeah, right. Okay. Bork, in the photo, she's kind of hitting the ceiling, and so for me, that needed to be at the top. So oftentimes the type is dictated by what's going on in the photo, a huge part of it. I can't just have a box waiting for the photo to be dropped in, because the photo's dictating what I'm going to do with the whole layout. And the idea that you simply have a frame waiting and the photo goes in there, to me, makes no sense. And that's when the work loses its impact. Yeah. So Nike's kind of the first people that came to me when the magazine work started getting some attention. And in the early 90s, the type was kind of the star. And so we did a lot of ads and billboards and all these things that were really type heavy, but still relying on a lot of white space to kind of make it work. This was a couple years ago for a surfing magazine in Portugal, called Surf Portugal, and I think the main thing I'd point out here is the 25-year anniversary, and at some point I had that in the middle, and then what I try not to do is put things where they obviously seem to want to go. So it was probably fine in the middle, and then I think, well, you know what, maybe there's a more interesting place. So the word 25 celebration, it got moved down, and for me it got more interesting. So I would encourage you not to put things always where they seem to want to go. Find something that's a little more interesting or intriguing to you, and maybe that'll work as well. So this was a contents page. You know, what are contents pages about? They're about a lot of numbers, and so the numbers are very big. And if you went to that page of that article, you would see the number again. So there's page 92, the article that showed up there. And again, it's a surf magazine. You have a certain crowd, a certain audience, and I think you have some maybe people that are maybe open to more experimentation. Page 76. So they all changed, they weren't all the same. I don't think anything should be just automatically put in before you start, like page numbers or anything else. This is from a new book I'm working on. If I could just get all the caption and credit stuff that I don't like doing finished. Somebody said to me one time, they said, well, do you have any time for personal work? And I said, well, it's all kind of personal. It's just, you know, I try to work intuitively and subjectively and do things that make sense to me, and I think that's where the best work comes from. A magazine out of Australia is called Monster Children. It's kind of a culture, lifestyle, a little bit of surf magazine. Asked me to do some covers. So this is one. This is a photo I took that got wet and got all messed up. It kind of worked. And I have some other versions of the same cover. And this was submitted at the same time the previous cover with, and I think the message that I would say with that is that I'm very comfortable showing a lot of ideas that I think could work. I'll show a lot of logos, a lot of layout ideas that I think would be better than what they have, or that I think could be nice. I don't feel I have to show one thing or two or even three. I show the client a lot of ideas I think could work with some fine tuning, or things that I think are better than what they have. And that was the case here. I showed them 3 or 4 different covers, and ultimately they picked one. but logos in particular, I'll show a lot. But you don't show anything you don't like, because they will pick it, and it will follow you your entire career. But I'm very comfortable showing a lot of ideas. I don't want to lose the job. I'm saying, here's a range from really simple to really complicated that I think would be better than what you have. And then I get their feedback, and then I go in and fine tune. So this is the third cover of this for the same issue. And they have surf and culture and all these things. This is a website for a site that was going to help you find out about the different plays and versions of Hamlet and different actors that had actually played the different characters. What I like about this, when I look back at it now, is the two H's. You know, you read, or at least I do, I read Hamlet out of that. There's no good reason. There's two H's. There's an H, upper, lower case, but it still kind of works. So. Reviews section, where you could find out different reviews that have been written about the different plays. Actors, here you find out different people who played the different actors throughout the various years. These would all be live. On the left, it was torn out of my notebook, but you would hit one of these torn out little squares, I'm sure some of you recognize, and they would take you somewhere. And there's something just kind of nice and simple about this H. It was some big pieces of wood I had painted on, and just something nice there. Sometimes people say, well, do you have any real clients? And I said, well, yeah, I have some pretty real clients. People that come to me, they say they want something a little different. And this was the case here with Bose speakers, I'm sure some of you are aware of, or headphones. And this was a tricky one, because they were a very conservative, old American company. And I'll show you just a couple things from that. So here, introducing that you can get their speakers in a lot of cars, sound system. So, like, it's reasonable, but yeah, but a bit safe. But you know, let's go to the next one. And this is something that you might say, well, what's the big deal? And for me, it becomes, at some point, it becomes about the little victories. Like, this was a very conservative client, and everything was a push. They didn't want to use anything but black and white. They didn't want to use anything on their headphones but black, silver. I think just black or silver, actually. So I was trying to get them to use color and to try to loosen up a bit. So it becomes about, sometimes, little victories. So I'd say this is a pretty pedestrian kind of layout, but you have to keep in mind that this company had never used anything but a white male in their ads. And I was able to get them to get away from that. And then they had certainly never had started a sentence with lowercase, so that was a big deal. And then the fact that this type was touching was an even bigger deal, you know, about 10 years after the rest of the world had been doing it. But rather than say, well, screw that, they don't give me any freedom, I don't get to do what I want, it's like, wow, this okay, how can I still do something that I'm happy with but does what they need it to be? And I'm sure any of you in the field, you know, clients can be difficult, but I think rather than say, well, screw it, it's like, okay, how can I still get some of myself into that, but do what they need it to do? It's a different kind of challenge. So here was a phone, or a remote for a new TV they were doing, and wanted to be simple, because that was the whole idea of this remote, and this one I think works pretty well. It's a lecture I gave in Australia, Byron Bay, and you know, when you give your own lecture and you do the poster, I think that's got to be the epitome of freedom in a poster, and I try to take advantage of that. And I did these numbers for a client. They're kind of fun to do them by hand, and then I actually made them move. I don't know. Are we going to be able to see them move? What happened? you ever want to impress a client with your logo, make it move. They love that. Even though if it's not intended to move, if it jumps around, they get pretty impressed, I found. So this was some early work for a car company in America, Chevy, and this Camaro, which is kind of an old school muscle car that they're trying to reintroduce. And I think the message here that says the new Camaro, what do you expect from the company that invented rock and roll or the country? And that's not so important as the way it's presented hopefully sends to their potential audience a message that, wow, something is up at Chevy. Maybe I should check this out again, or go to the dealer, or go to their website. But there seems to be some movement there. And that's probably the area of design I'm more interested in, not necessarily literally saying everything they're supposed to know, but giving them a feeling that, well, there's some movement. There's maybe I thought I knew them, but maybe I'll check it out again. And I think as designers, we have a huge capability to do that, to motivate people just through the use of design. So I've had a few different car companies that keep coming to me. Chrysler in America is fairly recent. They're kind of this odd brand where they build decent cars, but they just don't have a good reputation in America. And it's kind of your dad's car or your dad's car. And they had this thing imported from Detroit. It's not too bad. Let's see what else we got here. So with them, again, in the ads and the billboards, I'm trying to indicate there's some movement at Chrysler. You think you knew them, you think you know this old boring car, but check it out again. There's something going on there. And that's really more, hopefully, the message of these ads. So again, a lot of white space, playing with their logo a bit. And this is actually imported from Detroit, and the eye is the symbol of the car. And this is kind of close. There's something there. There's something kind of interesting there. And hopefully what you're going to see next is a little end tag for commercial using these basic letters. And I think what it shows when they move is the importance, and some of you know this, of sound design, because it's so important anytime you get motion, and so powerful in a sense. But let's see if we can get this moving. This would be an end 5-second, well, maybe it's the next one, but I also want to make the point that, when you think you're done with something, if you're doing something for a client, like go back in and see if there's something you can do to make it more unique or more yours or more something the next person wouldn't have done. So this I've simply opened, after choosing the font, opened letter spacing, which I think makes it a little classier, a little nicer, gone in and made one I kind of a lowercase I. So the point is, whatever it is, you decide, but go back in and show that a designer actually messed with it or had their hands on it. It wasn't simply typed in by the secretary or whoever. It's just, there's a little thought in there. So is that the, oh, okay. So here's the end tag. Somewhere in here is a great 3-second ending, but it really needs a sound design. That's when it would really come to life. So this would be early exploration and finding a little 3-second in there and then putting some sound to it. It could probably become, I think, very memorable. But they ended up changing. It's not imported from Detroit. It's I forget what they changed it to. So that this didn't happen. But, then Audi came to me. I really don't know why these car companies keep coming, but it's like, yeah, trying to get a younger audience. This is a 4-page fold-out in a magazine, and they had this way ahead, which I think is pretty good, kind of dual meaning. It's like they are the way ahead, and they're also way ahead of the competition. Look at the next one. So it was the A3, little station wagon. So again, if you hopefully this would get your attention if you thought you were kind of over Audi and it was your parents' car or something. A little more mechanical direction. And then just kind of really out there. He had these weird water bottles and put them on this dead tree. And they went for it. Quite good. Of course. Blue water bottles on a dead tree. Why not? What's wrong with you? Let's get with it. Howdy, come on. So I did some work for a very conservative clothing company in America, and I think there's some lessons to be learned here too. This is a cover for a catalog they did, and there's another catalog. They still do a lot of printed catalogs, and that's okay. They're a very conservative company. There's no real person. It's just a conglomerate of investors that do this thing. And they said, then they showed me their catalog that they had been doing. And it was like this. Well, I've never seen so many freaking guidelines in my life. I can't deal with that. It's like, I can't not see them. And there's like 30 of them or something. And for them, as long as something lined up with something either on that spread or another page, it was somehow good or okay. And I'm just going, what? That's where it's boring and lifeless and no impact. And you don't really need a designer to do that. Those are teachable skills to people who don't have a design sense or design eye. But that's also the reaction when other people see it. It's kind of like, oh, whatever. And I don't think that's where you want to live or work or be in that part of the industry. So I think when you start a layout, it should look like, should be blank. I realize you see a lot of little lines there, but there shouldn't be any. This is how I start. I can't, those guys, I see them, and I would encourage you to use your own design sensibility. For some reason you think that looks better than that, go with that and trust it. And that's where you can do something unique, something nobody else can copy. You can't buy a software to teach that, and you're going to have more fun doing it. So I'd really encourage you to, never snap to guides, I think is the command. Make those decisions. That's why you're a designer. That's why you went into the field. That's why people are hiring you, for your unique eye, not your ability to learn software like everybody else. Okay, so, yeah. And then they asked me to do a store window, and I said, what about this? And they had some readability issues here. I said, well, what do you mean? It's a last-minute gift guide, guaranteed delivery for Christmas, free shipping. What's the problem? They weren't buying it. You won't see this anywhere. But I do think in a crowded shopping mall in America, if this was in the window, probably would have got your attention. And then you could have easily made it the hang tags and the pricing and this and that. But we'll never know. They weren't. It's kind of hard to read. No, I can read it. What do you? This was a mood board. Some of you know, to try to set a tone for a new TV series called Fed, F-E-D, pretty twisted thing. And so there's a couple of these. It was in middle America and pretty twisted, actually. Fed, F-E-D. Just go ahead and, some interesting. And then I saw this one. So if you ever wonder how to get your bike around, and you're worried about it getting scratched or something, it's just like, well, there you go. Seriously? or maybe ride it. But, you're not supposed to text and drive, so I photograph and drive. And I'm just going, what the hell? What? Yeah, did my bike get there safe? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I made it good. Paddleboard company I did some brochure work for. Paddleboards were before SUP, the stand-up paddleboards. This was supposed to be the next big thing, but they were kind of blindsided by the whole stand-up paddleboard craze. Bark is a company, born, oh gosh, I hate this stuff, it's hard to read. Born on the water is their thing. Okay. So here's just kind of a mood catalog, really. They didn't even show that much product, which was kind of nice, but Born on the Water, the back page, actually there's one more, but there was the final back cover, which was this. I thought was pretty nice. Keep paddling, keep going. It's the original photo was a lot bigger. I cropped in where I thought it got more interesting, and I often do that. As soon as I'm given a photo or any image, I'm right away looking to see if I think there's a more interesting part in there that I could use and make it even more powerful. So that's the case here, and it's a pretty nice phrase. Keep paddling, keep going, keep trying. Some early work for Obama, the first campaign. A magazine out of London, actually, called Surfer's Path. And a spread from inside that. And I show this kind of to point out that when I'm working, if I'm given a title like The Fear Project, which there's no reason that the can't be the big word if that helps me kind of get my message across. And maybe making fear, which would be the obvious big word, small. Maybe it makes it more fearful. But it's it just gets back to your interpretation of all that, but not relying on what's always done. This is a true story, Hell in Paradise, about a bombing at a nightclub in Bali. So definitely didn't want this feeling too friendly or too perfect or too paradise-ish. So even the letter spacing of the word paradise is a little mucked up because it's, yeah. Anybody remember this band? Okay, good. Thank you, both of you. Well, do you want to know how they got their name? No, we're trying to get out of here. Well, you're going to hear about it. Anyway, this band contacted me, and they were called Future Primitive, and they wanted me to do their first CD. And I said, wow, that's kind of a lame name, Future Primitive. It's like all the cool bands had names like Blur and 4 letters, and I said, I don't know. They said, yeah, but we're kind of in the future, but we're kind of in the past. We're Future Primitive. And I said, I think that's really missing. There's a skate company that was already using that. And he goes, well, I don't know, just whatever you have to do, we'll think about that, but whatever you do on the CD cover, there has to be a picture of my dog, because he travels everywhere with us. And I said, that's great, and he goes, yeah, Bush is always with us, wherever we go with the band. And I said, hello, there's your name, call yourselves Bush, that's better than Future Primitive. And it was kind of quiet, I can still remember this phone call. And he goes, yeah, we do smoke a lot of pot. I said, well, in America, it has another meaning, too. Apparently, it's different here. Anyway, that became their name. And then later, I saw an interview in Rolling Stone. He said, how'd you come up with that name? He said, it just came to me one day. And I said, yeah. And then I did some work for Nine Inch Nails. How many know Nine Inch Nails? Yeah, okay, same, yeah. Great project, and I won't spend a lot of time with it, but it was one of my best projects I'd say I've ever worked on, because we kind of just hit it off as two creative people. And not that I was a rabid fan of the band, but I came to really appreciate what he does and kind of the whole system. What I really appreciate, though, this was the back cover of what was to be The Fragile, a double CD they'd had, and it was about a couple-month process, and that was always going to be the back cover. And they flew me to where they were practicing the band to come tour in Europe for one last final sign-off before the covers were printed in 4 different printing places around the world, because there were so many, and it did debut as #1, blah, blah, blah. And this was the back cover, and I showed them the cover. Yeah, go forward, maybe it's the next one. So this was the cover, and the lead, really the whole band, or the main guy, it would be my name drop, Trent, he said, you know, this other one, there's something about that I like, but it also really irritates me. He said, so we need to go with that. That's truer to the music. And I thought, what? I thought, how cool is that? He went with his second favorite cover because he thought it was truer to the music, even though he liked the other one better. And I thought, that's pretty cool. So literally the last hour, these things it was all switched at 4 different printing places around the world.
And this became the front cover, even though he liked it less than the back cover, which is this. So anyway, there's at least 2 people that appreciate that story. Yeah, good. Yeah. But I thought that was pretty cool. It was truer to the music, he said. And then it led to a lot of other things, postcards, videos, and commercials. And I got to use all my own photography. This is some early work for Burton Snowboards. Okay, and this is where I go surfing in the Caribbean. Anybody surf? Okay, the same guy? No. Okay. And let's see, what's next? You might have to stop oh, okay, so stop this for a second. So one of the questions I get asked, probably the most often, might even be, well, no, I would say the most often is, so do you still surf? So in answer to that question, I thought I would actually show you from a few months ago. This is where I go in the Caribbean. You can, the guy in the middle, that's your speaker. Those of you that surf, it's a pretty good wave too. And you'll see my house come up with a red thing on the roof because of the hurricane. All right, so frustrated surf guy still showing pictures of himself surfing to design talks, but let's keep going. Okay. I think, well, and this was, we say, well, yeah, you can surf, but can you skate? Yeah. Huh? Okay, we'll try to wrap this up real quick. So yeah, the only thing that got applause was the surfing and skating. Okay, so I've got to try to go really quick. It's a little difficult. This company came to me and wanted a new logo, and I said, well, I did a bunch, and I liked them all, so I made a move. Keep this one in mind. I'll show you what I sent them. It'll be next. Oh, this is some of they name products for big clients, so you probably recognize some of those. And you saw their logo. Now we'll look at some that I presented to them. Oh, okay. Sure. So I just quickly want to say, I called the company and said, oh, did you like any of those? I also sent them individual hard copies of each one. And the guy said, yeah, I like all of them. We're going to use all of them. So you'll see all of these on their website somewhere, and I've never had that happen, and I don't think I'll ever have it happen again, but I think the message is, if you don't show the client the more out there stuff or the more experimental, they can't pick it, so, show them a range, and occasionally they'll surprise you and pick something you weren't expecting, and that was the case here for sure. So we'll try to speed this up. Cover for Wallpaper magazine. You couldn't use a computer. It was kind of nice. I just played off this idea of C. Felice. And that's an early one. And this is the one they actually printed. I like the C reference, and it was kind of nice. Okay. Blue magazine. Nice adventure lifestyle, but magazine they were calling it, and I suggested the name Blue, and I really love this photo. Surf magazine from Portugal called Surf Enrico, where the logo changed every issue. Photographer from New York, Albert Watson. The captions always were dictated by the photo, so they weren't all in one place every page. They were depended what was going on in the photos. Poster exhibition in Venice. Worked for Dali Museum. Cover for a magazine in America. Ray-Ban sunglasses. It was a fun one. It just had to say the name of the glasses, which was Orbs, and the O always had to be one of the actual glass. That was it. Fun stuff. Talk I gave in Texas. Talk I gave in Switzerland. Help for tsunami victims. Here, the message is, I'm playing with the idea of they've been through hell, but help is on the way. So the type wasn't just, well, let's do something weird. That was the starting point. It's like, okay, hell, maybe help is on the way. I don't think it quite works, but that's the starting point, as opposed to like just do something weird. Another version, worked for Armani. And the Surf Film Festival in San Sebastian. Marshall McLuhan, a bunch of quotes I interpreted of his. This is kind of interesting. The most human thing about us is our technology. I'm not sure I quite understand that one, but it's kind of cool. And anyway, if you like Marshall McLuhan, you should, okay. Yeah, we'll keep going. I'm trying to speed up. So, magazine, SPD, Society of Publication Designers in New York, a 50-year anniversary poster. And a talk I gave in Australia. And Quicksilver Pro work, first big surf contest they'd had in New York City. So again, I'm showing the client a lot of potential directions. There's a lot of stuff going on at this event. So. Or then I show them something very simple, and then I get their feedback and go from there. They ended up with something pretty close to this, and I think these letters, you just need to see one, and you realize it's a pro, and from that event. Poster. They actually gave these away free. You could, if you tore them off, you got a free poster. It was kind of a cool idea. Branding. And then they had me do the one in France, which was cool, and very different everything, so it needed to have a different look and feel than New York. So just playing with more hand-done type. And they were very into their environment. They wanted the local landscape colors and shapes and things to be in there. The trees from that part of France. And what happens if you hit
World Surf League logo exploration. They didn't buy any of those. But they should have. It's a hotel in Portland. Had me do some stuff on their walls, and Ace Hotel says, "Good news, it's a brand new day. Come on, check it out for you for free, as is today, guaranteed." Seemed like a cool thing to wake up to. Maybe not in black, but magazine out of Korea, and the back cover, which is actually more interesting. And the talk I gave in Kentucky, and Bogota, and you saw some of these numbers earlier. It's a calendar, 2014, 25th of December. Magazine out of, I think Germany, Walks cover. What Youth, a magazine out of Southern California that I would encourage you to try to find. It's really well done. And poster for Harvard, speaker series, another idea. And talk in Peru. Client I've got trying to do a flying car. Like that. Where are we? We keep going. Personal air vehicle. They don't call them flying cars. They call them PAVs. Personal air vehicle, and they're pretty cool. This is kind of what it looks like. It's kind of like a drone, but for people. There you can see the size relationship to a Volkswagen Beetle, and pretty cool. Some logo ideas for them. They went with these 4 or 5, actually. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5. Okay, there's another poster. Another idea for TV, Real Me TV, and graphicdesigners.com. Really racing to the grand finale here. Wetsuit rebranding, a wetsuit company out of England called Seaskins. Kind of fun to actually work on some of the wetsuits. And yes, I even do potato chip. Worked for Samsung. This is kind of a teaser campaign for the 8 model. There's been a few models back, but so it just says S8 and then a hint of the phone. Another example. This teaser campaign start to let people know there's a new phone coming. I do some screen printing. I really enjoy getting out and actually working with ink and all this, and just the posters. It's a place where we waited all day in the rain for you. Amtrak train, America asked me to do a map of where they go, and I said, what about this? And they said, well, maybe we need some cities. So I said, well, okay, what about this? They said, well, we don't really like the star. And, oh wait, go back. So they ended up going with this without the star, but the names of the cities don't line up with anything on the map. They're just kind of cool. So you see like Dallas and Boston, and this is all fucked up. They went with it. I figure if you're on the train and you're reading the train's magazine, you know where the hell you are and where you're going. You're just like, oh, you know, where does this train go? Adios. Adidas, some work just with tape. It's kind of cool. Current campaign, some product. And tiles I was asked to do in Valencia, Spain, about a year ago. It's kind of fun to get out and work with these like heavy, different surface, totally, obviously different from the computer, but I found the problem was I tended to design them as individual tiles, and then when I saw them all on one wall, it was like way too much. It was like all messed up, but pretty fun. Okay, we're gonna have to really wrap this up. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, more tiles. Some anti-plastic stuff I'm doing currently right now. So we want it to look like Hawaiian shirts, but when you look up close, you'll see there's a lot of plastic involved and how they could work. Magazine out of London, marketing magazine, just did some covers. These are out right now. Just came out. And new Nine Inch Nails. They used an old photo. It was kind of cool. So, secret beer company in America. Shh. Oh man, you guys got it. And I'm trying to show them something with no product, no logo. Where's our product? Where's our logo? And no, they're cool. Trust me, they're really cool. Erase the hate, another campaign, another idea. Don't hate, create. It's kind of cool. Some car ads that didn't come close to flying. Yeah, that was kind of their reaction too. Okay, keep going. Secret beer company. Yeah. Talk I gave in America, 72, kind of nice, put those two together. And collage work for Puma, a fin trade thing. I'm trying to get people to quit killing all these sharks for soup. And at some point I realized, well, if you're gonna show their fins, like, okay, show a lot of them. It's like, okay, there's a crazy number you're about to see. I thought, well, no, maybe really do it. So I did that. These are all hand done, they're not copy and pasted. And then I realized, well, you know, maybe individually they're even stronger, they're strong as well. So these became kind of nice, I think, also. So the whole idea is kill the fin trade. I realize it's a tricky thing to get people to be sympathetic to sharks. But when I turned the shark around, not like you're used to seeing it, it became a little more, I think, accessible in a way. So there's like 30 of these. Okay. And we really are wrapping up. Hi, my name is David Carson. I'm here at... that's a minute. That's a minute. So you tell me if you want them to see it. No? No? Okay. Oh, that was so cool, too. Anyway, a wall I did for an ad agency in LA, and these keywords, and I turned them into surfboards. Keep going. Oh, cover for a magazine, and that's a great order. And then they actually, listen, go back one second. So if you're surfing in a rocky place, be sure and cut your big toenail, like cut it back, because if you like jump in or you fall in, it can take that nail and just pull it back the whole way, and it's super painful. And then when you're out there and you know that nail is pulled back, it's really scary to like jump up because you think you're going to pull it even farther. And yeah, it's hell. It's hell. So should you be doing that, cut that big toenail, because otherwise yours will look like mine did. Okay, anyway. We're all clear on that, right? Okay, good. Okay, keep going. Okay, yeah, we'll just watch this for another hour. Okay, good. I think there's the actual surfboard they just made. This one I think is kind of important, the next one. The poster I did for America Answers Gun Violence. So the biggest trend in America for furniture right now is bulletproof furniture. And it's just like, I'm sorry, that's so fucked up to approach the problem that way. So yeah, no, you'll be safe in the movie theaters, in your churches, in your schoolyards. Don't worry, the chairs, the furniture is all bulletproof. We've solved the gun problem. It's like, no, that's all wrong. So anyway, I made that poster, and then I did this on a wall in LA, talk to strangers. In America, you're taught never talk to strangers. And I think, you know what, maybe if we did, it wouldn't be all these massive problems. Talk to strangers. You'll find out they're kind of normal and they have the same problems and concerns you do. So maybe talk to strangers isn't such a bad idea. Like a month ago, collage work, which I'm kind of enjoying doing. And it's simple and like putting things on the floor and moving them around. It's pretty fun to get out from behind the computer. Oh, there you go. So follow me on Instagram, or use my teenage email. It's not 666. It was taken. But seriously, you can. All right. Well, we're just about wrapping up here. Oh, no, well, it's pretty cool, but it's a long one. So, yeah, exactly. You could yell at them later. Wait, go back. I got to build this up. Okay, so this is the final bit. And so I was on a plane. I saw this is hot new products. I thought, really? Is this progress? You want a plate in your keyboard? It's like, what do you put in there? Soup or pizza, and then you type some more? It's like, and you can't pretend you don't spend all day in front of the computer when you got a freaking plate built into the keyboard. It's just like, I'm just not sure this is progress. And then we'll look at, my dad was a test pilot. They used to take planes up to see whether they would fly or not. And I think about this, people say, oh, I see why you take chances in your graphic design. And I say, well, it's not really the same thing. So these decisions I have to make between serif and sans serif. So why not experiment? Why not put some of yourself into the work? Why not push yourself? Why not have some fun with it? You know, you're gonna be dead a long time. And I remember the best definition of a job that I've heard, and some of you have probably heard it, but if money wasn't an issue, would you do that same work? And if you would, you've got a great job. And that is something to search for. And if you would, what's the point exactly? So it may not be your first, second, or third job, but if money wasn't an issue, would you do that same thing? And if you would, you found you're right where you should be. So I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. Your wave is coming. Never snap to guides. Keep paddling, and maybe most important, have fun. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, David. Otro aplauso, por favor, para David.
I'm happy to.
Ahora haremos unas preguntas. Nos han llegado algunas preguntas de internet que tenemos aquí. So I'm going to translate the questions because they were sent to us in Spanish. So what criteria do you have when you select photos to use in your graphic pieces? This was by Jose Ignacio Silva.
Well, they have to feel fresh or new or different to me. I have to do a double take and go, oh, what's going on here? So if it feels familiar, if it feels like it came from a stock photo agency, it's just like, I'm probably not interested. So it needs to feel fresh and different and maybe not perfect.
Have you ever stopped being a kid?
No.
No.
Well, I hope not. Overall, you know, pretty curious group. Yeah, no.
Were you ever scared to try and be who you were? Like, were you ever scared to try and do what you thought or what you felt was the right way to do it?
Well, not so much in graphic design. I mean, when I discovered it, and it's a second career for me. It's not, you know, I taught high school for 5 years, then discovered graphic design later. It's a second career. So by the time I discovered it, I didn't really question it. It's like, wow, that's what I want to do. And for some reason, I have this way of looking at things that kind of works. And yeah, I've just trusted that. I've kind of listened to it and I've never been, oh my God, should I really do this? Like, wow, it just became really clear to me. So, and everybody has that. It's just the tricky part is to listen to it or trust it or run with it.
Do we have any questions in the... ¿Tenemos alguna pregunta que alguien quiera hacer? Mira, tenemos una mano ahí, Marta. Al fondo, allá. Ahora viene, un segundo. Sí, sí, sí. Ahora te traen el micro.
Just want to... Hello. My name is Manuela. I'm from Italy. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I would like to know what is the feeling that you get when you feel like it's done. Like now, all the hours I've spent like planning photos, all the materials, when you feel like, oh yeah, now it's ready to be presented to someone, because I never get that feeling.
Well, it's definitely one of the trickiest feelings to get or to understand when you're done, when to trust yourself that that's it, it's finished, stop. And that's a tricky thing to get. I probably don't get too much like complete relief that it's all over because I've got something else that's starting up, but I think it's difficult, and it's a kind of acquired ability to realize, stop, you got it, that's done, it works. And sometimes I'll put stuff up if I can't decide, like in the morning when I come into the studio and I see it for the first time, how I react, and I trust that. If I walk in and think, oh, nice, it's probably done. If I walk in and go, then I probably have to go back to it. But it's you basically have to trust yourself. Don't trust a grid or somebody else's expectations. When it feels right to you, at some point you got to let it go. It's done. So, but it's a hard one.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
try.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck with that.
Yes.
Easy to say.
From the internet as well, Manon Bosch said, what is the best way to provoke an emotional response from the audience in graphic design?
Well, that's a really good question, but I think the way you can't probably provoke it is to try to do that. You have to be connected to what you're reading or interpreting or listening to, and take that, where whatever emotion you're getting from that, and try to reinforce that. And if you do that, there's a much better chance that the people looking at it are going to have the same reaction. If you do something in 5 seconds and throw it out and it goes out there, that's going to kind of be the same reaction other people are going to have when they see it. So all I could say is invest yourself in what you're working on, be emotionally involved in it, be totally kind of obsessed with it, and chances are people that see it are going to get some of that same feeling from it. If you're bored and you threw it out, it's done, that's going to be their reaction too. Spend 2 seconds with it and gone. So, yeah.
Thank you. Also from the internet, I'm going to read it in Spanish so you can hear it. ¿Podrías darnos algún consejo desde la sinceridad más profesional a todos aquellos que amamos la tipografía para poder hacer de ella nuestra profesión? Could you give us like a suggestion or like some advice for all the professionals that are in love with typography, how they can make it make a living out of it?
Make it what?
Make a living out of being a typographist,
Well, if you are passionate about it and you're really driven by it, it sounds kind of cliche, but you have to stick with it. You have to be persistent and keep doing what you love. And eventually it's going to kind of click for you. That was, in my case, if you do something you really love and you stick with it and you're persistent, eventually it's going to work. It's going to come together. And that's about all I would say. It's just you don't want to be doing something you don't enjoy, or you're watching the clock, you're waiting for the end of the day. No, it's, this is a field that allows you to love going to work, to love what you're doing, and that's a really cool thing. You're all in that or you wouldn't be here. So, run with that. There's a ton of really bored people out there in jobs they don't like or love. And we're in a field where you can have fun, you can make a living, you can be creative. That's a pretty cool thing. So even if it's not totally clicking for you right now, stick with it, because that's, you're going to spend a long part of your life working. And the idea that you would do something you don't really enjoy or you're not passionate about, what's the point? That's like, you're never, yeah. So, but the good news is you're in this field that you can make a living having fun and be creative, and so, yeah, that's a good thing.
¿Hay alguna pregunta más? Aquí tenemos una pregunta. Marta, aquí delante.
Sí, voy. Por aquí.
La hago en castellano y tú le traduces, ¿ok? Al principio del trabajo, cuando apareció Carson, fue una bocanada de aire fresco porque no llevaba la mochila del academicismo del diseño gráfico, pero cómo ha hecho cuando ya sabe lo que está haciendo para seguir un poco aquello que decía la Paula Scher, cuando dejas de ser serio y empiezas a ser solemne, ¿no? Cuando empiezas a repetirte. ¿Cómo ha conseguido mantener cuando ya sabía cómo funcionaban las reglas del diseño, ¿no?
So basically the question is, when you started in graphic design, you weren't hindered by all the rules and knowledge that is taught at graphic design school. And so your design was very fresh and very different and very new. How have you managed to keep that freshness throughout your career? Because once you've kind of fallen into the rules and seen the rules without having learned them, did they influence you at all? Or?
Well, that's a good question, and then I may have mentioned it. You know, I never learned all the things I wasn't supposed to do. I just did what made sense to me. But I'm just kind of curious about the world and everything going on. Somebody told me one time when they tried to walk me through their school that they said, "You're always scanning, aren't you?" And I am. I'm kind of notice everything. This could be a better picture. We could maybe tweak the type. It's just kind of, you know, I make my living from my hobby, so it's nothing I have to force. And if I was trying to force it, we probably wouldn't be here right now. So I don't have a good, solid answer on that other than to stay curious and explore what intrigues you and interests you. And that's all I've tried to do. And then, you know, if this keeps going, great. I get to do what I love doing and still go surfing and show pictures of myself surfing at these big events.
And skateboarding.
So, no magic answer, but I haven't tried to stay fresh. I've just tried to evolve as a person, hopefully, as a designer, and I'm still curious. I took 1 million photos the last few days, and just what I do. So.
Thank you so much. Gracias a David Carson, por favor. Y también muchas gracias a ESdesign por organizar este evento y por traernos a David Carson. Gracias.